Hello, my name is Blaziken, and welcome to my Spiral Abyss video. Wow, would you look at that. 2 Spiral Abysses in a row where I've made content. That's cool, that's great. But yeah, I mean, this is a tough Spiral Abyss, there's no question about it. It's definitely quite problematic. So, this video, a decent amount of people are probably gonna be like, oh, that's cool. This guy cleared with 1 character on each side, fantastic. But, not very helpful, right? Not very applicable to a normal person. So because of that, I think I'm going to be giving a little bit of advice. So in terms of what's actually difficult this Spiral Abyss, looking at each individual chamber, I think Chamber 1 is pretty straightforward. If you're struggling on Chamber 1, I mean, it's quite literally just an easier version of Chamber 3, in all honesty. So if you're struggling on Chamber 1, you're just going to have a lot of problems on Chamber 3, right? So I think we can skip over that. Chamber 2 is where I think things start getting interesting. The first half I think is fairly straightforward. We've had double Geo Vishap on like 3-4 Spiral Abysses at this point, so I don't know, pretty simple. But of course we have the triple Magu Kenki. Now, of course, anybody who was a whale and ran around doing the max scoring of the Wanderer's Threefold Challenge will remember these guys. But of course, they're much easier. They don't have the resistances. They don't have the revive if you don't kill the 2 reflections at the same time. So it is quite a bit easier. But yeah, I mean, conceptually, there are some things that you can take away from the Wanderer's Threefold stuff. So I'll talk about that a bit. But the first thing to note about these Magu Kenki is that there's 3 of them. So what you really want is good grouping, right? And of course, along with that, somebody who can do good AoE. Ganyu's fantastic at it. You can aim in like the center or at the middle Magu Kenki, aim at the ground. There's a lot of ways to hit them all. But the real problem with Ganyu is that you constantly need to keep them grouped, and that's just not very easy. So because of that, it's perfectly fine, but it's hard. So that's great. Now, a character who is extremely good for this fight is Eula. I think that's not particularly surprising because, we have a Eula banner going on right now, so they would want to sell Eula. And yeah, this is a great showcase of how strong Eula is. She's really good at hitting all 3 for just an enormous amount of damage at once, and the grouping is generally fairly easy. And here's the thing about the grouping, you don't necessarily need to hit all 3 of them. You can hit 2 of them and be fine as long as you have enough DPS, right? So, of course, in terms of priority, I would go through with killing the blue one first, the cryo one, because it is by far the most troublesome. It's going to waste the most time. The huge cryo nuke that puts the cryo field down is just a huge time waster. So, definitely first priority. Next, I would personally go with the Anemo Magu. It's just a little bit more annoying in my opinion than the main Magu. The main Magu's attacks are just so easy, so telegraphed, and there's just so much time to dodge them that I don't feel like he's much of a threat at all. Whereas when you're in melee range, at least for the Anemo Magu, his attacks are a little bit annoying to dodge, so yeah. And outside of that, I mean, yeah, I would personally not go for the main Magu first. So that's my priority. In terms of like other strategizing other than just grouping and AoE damage, of course there's the little trick that I pull, which is pulling the Cryo Magu away from the other 2 and letting him do his big boom away. And because of that, you can basically just group them up again and just take all 3 of them and do a very nice big DPS little session there. That's not necessarily necessary, I guess, if you have a good healer, right? Like if you're running around Chi-Chi, you probably don't need to do that. But if you don't have a fantastic healer, that cryo field hurts. It does a lot of damage, so definitely be careful. But yeah, I mean, it's really about balancing the damage that you take along with the damage that you're dealing. Of course, if you have a healer, it's much easier. With me using Eula, it's a lot harder, right? Like, I kind of take hits to deal more damage, and well, it's a trade-off. I have to balance that. If you have a healer, not quite as necessary, right? So yeah, that's big. Another piece of advice I'll give is that if you find yourself dying, do check if you have a Bennett on your team, right? Because if you have a Bennett on your team, he applies Pyro on your characters. So while his burst is up, right? So, you know, you're getting melted by the Cryo Magu in particular, and you can actually just get one-shot by that. So do be careful. Probably not particularly relevant to most people, but it could happen. So definitely be prudent of something like that. Yeah, I mean, that's all I really have to say. Eula's insane. AoE, group them, kite away the Cryo one if you really need to. Yeah, that's about it. Chamber 3. I think Chamber 3 could be the most challenging for some people. It depends on what difficulties you're facing, but Chamber 3 is also pretty problematic. So the real problem with Chamber 3 is of course the Rift Hounds, but let's start with the Sentinels, right? Because they're the first thing that show up. So the Sentinels are pretty simple. You have a triangle Sentinel on the left, and then the crab-looking one on the right. You go towards the triangle one, and you stand, if you're facing it, right? There's a line, you, and then the triangle sentinel, and then a little bit away from that is the crab one, right? So just stick close to the triangle sentinel basically at some point, and one of two things will happen. I've never seen anything else happen. Either the triangle sentinel will dash away and group itself up with the crab one, or the crab one will jump over and group itself with the triangle one. So yeah, pretty simple, easy grouping. That's how it is. The Rift Hounds are a different story. They're super annoying. They have like really high health, like, I don't know, like 600k plus, like it's crazy. But the big problem is that they also have elemental resistance to add on to that. It's pretty annoying. It's actually a huge pain in the ass. But the big thing, of course, that makes them so bad is that they just move around so much, right? They have a move that backpedals and you can just miss attacks because of that. Of course, they have a move that literally makes them disappear for like 3 seconds and you're wasting time, right? Like there's so many problems that they can pose, just a lot of time wasting, right? You can miss attacks, you can just have downtime where you just can't hit them at all. And the worst part is when they're desynced in their attacks, you could basically get to a point where you can only deal damage to one target at a time, right? If they're desynced well enough, then they could basically split themselves up in a way that you can't really control, and you're basically just dealing single target damage, and that's pretty bad. That's just RNG, nothing you can do about that. But in terms of getting decent grouping at all times, the best way I found is just to go melee range, right? Like if you see my Ganyu play, I'm very, very close to them mostly, and that's just because when they do their attacks, they're just going to group themselves up if you're right next to the other one. So yeah, that's how I do it. That's the advice I'll give, and I don't really know if there's too much else. So yeah, outside of that, I think it's pretty easy. All the attacks are super telegraphed, very easy to dodge, so not really too much trouble. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it with this Abyss. Not really anything else that's too troublesome as far as I can tell, but yeah. Now, of course, people might be saying, oh man, like, you did the second chamber with a healing card, right? That's so cringe. Yeah, I have a run where, the previous day where I didn't bring a healing card, my cards the previous day were really bad. Not that I couldn't clear it, I should have been able to clear it, but at some point I just decided I should just re-roll for better cards rather than just forcing the issue. You know, I'll link it down in the comments below if you guys want to watch both the run where I choked and died and should have gone to 9-star yesterday, as well as the run where I did not heal from the cards. So yeah, that's pretty much it though, I think. Pretty tough Abyss overall. Really tough solo. I think Eula is just an amazing character for this Abyss in particular. And outside of that, yeah, I mean, that's all I gotta say. Yeah, with that being said, there it is. finish the solo. We're gonna come up here with the build in a moment, so you know, if you're interested in that, you can stick around, but if not, then I'll see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much for watching. You know, comment down below if you have anything interesting to say, like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you enjoy my content, and yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.